France's health minister announces that the health state of emergency will be extended until the end of July. He also says that anyone visiting the country will have to quarantine before being allowed in. Apps to help fight COVID-19 are being developed and even used in some parts of the world, but they pose a risk to people's rights and privacy. Is the risk worth the reward? And Russia announced an increase of 10,000 coronavirus cases in less than 24 hours. France 24's team in Moscow look at how Russians are being tested and whether those tests are effective. Thank you for joining us in the France 24 newsroom. We start here in France, where the government has announced that the current health state of emergency will be extended until the end of July. In a series of announcements made by Health Minister Olivier Véran, tourists coming into France will also have to be quarantined before being allowed into the country. Monty Francis has the details.
As France continues to see a drop in new cases and deaths from COVID-19, the French health minister warned against risking the momentum of its recovery by lifting restrictions too early.
Conformément à l'avis unanime du comité de scientifiques, le projet de loi présenté ce matin en Conseil des ministres entend proroger l'état d'urgence sanitaire pour 2 mois jusqu'au 24 juillet.
The first phase of easing restrictions is set for May 11th. That's when the strict lockdown ends and people can travel up to 100 kilometers from their homes. They can also return to their workplaces. Most businesses and some schools will reopen, and social distancing guidelines will be enforced. But restaurants and cafes will remain closed, and large gatherings are still banned. The bill extending the health state of emergency until July 24th includes 7 articles. Among them, a requirement that anyone arriving in France or in a French territory from abroad go into isolation for 14 days. Also included is the implementation of a tracking system for people with the virus and those they've come in contact with. All of this a sign that France will be dealing with the virus throughout the summer, and that breaking the rules, including a requirement to wear masks on public transport, will come with consequences.
Grâce à ce projet de loi, les adjoints de sécurité, les gendarmes adjoints volontaires, les réservistes de la police et de la gendarmerie nationale pourront constater le non-respect des règles de l'état d'urgence sanitaire et le sanctionner.
The French Parliament is expected to take up the bill on Monday.
Contact tracing is one of the hot topics of the moment, with many European countries debating whether or not to use technology in a bid to fight the coronavirus. The Stop COVID app, which could be downloaded voluntarily, would inform you if you have come into contact with someone who has tested positive by collecting data on people around you. But such knowledge comes at a cost, namely privacy and human rights.
Will the French government soon be tracking its citizens' every move? France is currently pushing ahead with its contact tracing program in the form of a mobile app called Stop COVID. When an individual tests positive for COVID-19, he or she will be added to a database known as CDEP. Those who have come into close contact with him or her would then be added to another database called Contact COVID so that they can be tested for the virus and isolated if necessary. 3 to 4 million people are expected to be identified via the app.
Ce sont des gens grâce à qui on va pouvoir identifier toutes les chaînes de contamination pour éviter qu'on ait à nouveau des foyers épidémiques qui repartent comme la France l'a connu. Et on est très très loin d'un fichage, d'un flicage ou de toutes les expressions que j'ai pu entendre. Ce n'est pas ça.
Other European countries like Italy, Germany, and Switzerland are launching their own contact tracing apps, using a technology standard created jointly by Apple and Google that avoids centralized government databases, instead using peer-to-peer technology to alert users to potential virus exposure. The French plan has raised yet another issue. The so-called brigades of workers tasked with tracking down all these contacts will have access to confidential medical information despite not necessarily being doctors themselves. The country's top medical union says it's not overly concerned.
On a un secret médical, effectivement, il est partagé avec les services de l'assurance maladie. Il est partagé depuis longtemps autour des maladies chroniques, y compris des maladies graves. Et là, en termes de Covid, c'est la même chose. Pour nous, il y a une continuité dans le travail que nous faisons tous les jours.
To ensure data security, the government has asked the National Data Protection Authority to study the new app. Its opinion is expected to be published in the coming days.
It has been a difficult 24 hours for Vladimir Putin's government after close to 10,000 coronavirus cases were recorded across the country in less than a day's time. Initially slow to make its mark in Russia, the virus is now spreading rapidly. The Kremlin have said that there are 124,000 officially confirmed infections, though analysts believe that there are more. France 24's team in Moscow have been talking to medical professionals who are concerned about how patients are being tested and express doubts over the reliability of those tests. Those appearing in this report asked to remain anonymous.
In late March, Pavel Morozov spent 12 days in the hospital just opposite his home. He was diagnosed with pneumonia in both lungs, but not COVID-19.
J'ai fait 4 tests au total. Donc, moi, j'ai eu les résultats d'un seul test que j'ai reçu lorsque j'étais à l'hôpital et en fait qui était négatif.
When he got out of hospital, Pavel got tested again privately. It came out positive. But that means he does not figure in Russia's official statistics of coronavirus cases. And in hospital, he was treated like an ordinary patient.
On était 4 dans la chambre. Lui, son lit était le plus proche du mien, donc il a eu des symptômes de pneumonie. Il est rentré chez lui dans une région et une semaine plus tard, il y a sa mère qui est entrée à l'hôpital avec une pneumonie.
Unreliable testing is compounded by problems isolating the sick. Dozens of hospitals in Moscow have been requisitioned to take in COVID patients, but they weren't designed for treating infectious diseases. We spoke to a volunteer nurse who works at one of these centres.
Наш корпус – это одна большая красная зараженная грязная зона. Нам выдают один костюм на сутки, но, соответственно, так как у нас шлюзов нет, чтобы выйти покурить, люди проходят в костюмах через подвал, в котором люди переодеваются.
Faced with the emergency, the city authorities are building this 800-bed hospital. Part of it is already in service, and according to one doctor who works there, it offers much better conditions.
Оборудована больница очень хорошо, то есть я никогда не видел, чтобы в обычном линейном отделении были прикроватные мониторы.
Will it be enough to stem the pandemic in the Russian capital? The authorities may strike a reassuring tone, but for now, the infection rate is rising exponentially.
In the United States, the Johns Hopkins University has updated the death toll in the US to over 65,000 people. The US is the worst hit country in the world with over 1.1 million cases. Despite these numbers, several more states eased their restrictions on Saturday. Idaho and Alabama loosened lockdown measures, whilst Texas has lifted stay-at-home orders for its 29 million residents. The US government, meanwhile, has authorized the Ebola drug remdesivir for treating COVID-19 in emergencies. The holy month of Ramadan is now in its second week, and most Muslim countries have officially closed their mosques because of the coronavirus pandemic. But in Pakistan, the government has allowed mosques to remain open against the advice of medical experts, with infections multiplying in recent days. Shazaib Wala reports.
This crowded market in Pakistan might seem odd at a time of a global pandemic, but during this month of Ramadan, many Pakistanis head out to buy groceries to cook for iftar, the breaking of the fast, despite a government-imposed lockdown. In a controversial move, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan decided to reopen the mosques.
हमारा रमज़ान एक इबादत का वक्त है। अगर लोग नमाजी जाना चाहते हैं और हम उनको रोकते हैं और हम फिर पुलिस खड़ी करते हैं और फिर हम जेलों में लोग डालते हैं, ये आज़ाद कौम ऐसी हरकतें नहीं करती।
Worshippers must keep a distance from each other and bring their own prayer mats. The elderly are asked to pray in their homes, but these instructions are seldom respected.
दीन अपनी जगह पर है, ये जो प्रिकॉशंस हैं ये अपनी जगह पर हैं, तो हम लोग दोनों को साथ लेकर बड़े प्रॉपर तरीके से अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
मसाजिद में भी लोगों का रुख ज़्यादा हो गया, आमदोरफ्त ज़्यादा हो गई है। इस तरह जो वक्त उनका परेशानी में कारोबार ना होने की वजह से काट रहा था, वो परेशानी काफ़ी हद तक कम हो जाती है।
Medical experts have called the decision irresponsible. The country has a poor healthcare infrastructure with heavily overcrowded hospitals.
हमारी गवर्नमेंट को जो मसाजिद बंद करने चाहिए, इसकी वजह ये है कि जो भी वहाँ नमाज पढ़ने जाती है, वहाँ पे जो लोग गुस्ल कर रहे हैं, जो नमाज के लिए वज़ू कर रहे हैं, क्या वो सोर्स ऑफ इन्फेक्शन? हाँ, वो सोर्स ऑफ इन्फेक्शन ज़रूर है। मदारिस में जो उलमा बैठे हुए हैं, इनका पॉलिटिकल प्रेशर की वजह से मेरे ख्याल से हमारी गवर्नमेंट कोई एक्शन नहीं ले रही।
Even though gatherings are officially forbidden, food distribution at the time of iftar is increasing, a blessing for many Pakistanis, as a quarter of the population lives under the poverty line.
One of the major issues caused by the coronavirus was that schools had to close down, with many pupils missing out on valuable lessons. 2 months after they closed, in some cases, schools across Europe are preparing for at least partial reopenings as national governments begin to ease their coronavirus lockdowns. Here in France, nursery and primary schools are set to begin progressively restarting their activities beginning on May 11th. Brian Quinn has this.
Back to school in spring, as coronavirus lockdowns begin to ease. In Denmark, kids up to age 11 have already been back in class since mid-April, though with heightened distancing measures in place.
We have a window of 45 minutes where you can come to the school, and we have divided the school into 4 entrances where each class has a specific entrance to go into.
The kids are glad to be out of the house, but it's come at a cost. Since reopening schools, Danish authorities have seen a significant spike in the reproduction rate of COVID-19 transmissions. As governments worldwide prepare to begin loosening restrictions on public movement after weeks of lockdown, resuming classes for millions of cooped-up children is promising to be a key sticking point. While Germany has reopened children's playgrounds, a plan to reopen schools on a staggered schedule next week has been postponed until May 6th. The country's top coronavirus expert has cast doubt on a widespread assumption that children are less likely to transmit the virus than adults. That belief had been bolstered by a preliminary report from researchers in the Australian state of New South Wales, showing very low transmission rates among a small group of primary school students and teachers. A similar study here in France also seemed to show a low transmission rate among children. Still, the government's Scientific Advisory Committee recommended schools in France remain closed until September, as other hotspots like Italy and New York State have already decided. President Emmanuel Macron, though, bucking those recommendations with a decision to set schools for a gradual reopening starting May 11th.
In other world news, Donald Trump has tweeted he is happy to see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un alive after it was rumoured he had died of the coronavirus. After several appearances in public and reports from North Korean state media, any belief that Kim had passed away was dispelled. Trump and Kim have had a tumultuous relationship, but White House experts have said that the North Korean leader is key to stability in the region. France is mourning Dmytro Martiniuk 1 week after being wounded during a counter-terrorism operation in Mali. The French soldier died of his injuries on Friday. His death comes as France intensifies its operations against jihadists in Mali and the larger Sahel region, an operation that's now seen 42 French troops killed in the line of duty since it was launched 7 years ago. Claire Rush has this.
Far from the rugged Sahel terrain where he sustained his injuries, Dmytro Martiniuk passed away at this Paris hospital on Friday. The French soldier succumbed to his injuries 1 week after being wounded by a roadside bomb during a counter-terrorism operation in Mali, according to a statement from France's Armed Forces Ministry released Saturday. The death brings to 42 the number of French troops killed in the Sahel since Paris first stationed troops there in 2013 to help train and assist local forces against jihadists. In recent months, France has stepped up its offensive. President Emmanuel Macron has vowed to deploy an additional 600 soldiers, bringing the total to 5,100. And the French military says it's killed several dozen terrorists since the beginning of the year. Mali is struggling to contain an Islamist insurgency that erupted in 2012 and has since spread to neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger, claiming thousands of civilian lives, despite the presence of thousands of French and UN troops.
That's all we have for now. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.